各位朋友，下午好！欢迎大家来到 EMCC 及欧洲导师与教练协会100场导师技术在线论坛。今天是第51场，不知不觉我们的讲座已经过半，感谢大家的陪伴，一起见证这个重要的里程碑。今天我们第51场的主题是揭秘变革型教练指导，是来自爱尔兰的 Anna Wright 博士来主讲。接下来让我们介绍一下这位嘉宾。好 ，Anna Wright 博士呢，她是领导力教练和沟通专家，是 ICF 及美国国际教练联合会大师级教练。好，我们通常会把大师级教练简称为 MCC， 他也是 ICF 爱尔兰分会的前会长。好，我相信呢，现在已经进入了3伏天了，大家都有点心急气躁。相信听到了这位沟通专家的课之后，你们肯定会成为组织协调的润滑剂，也成为家庭关系的能手。好，接下来让我们介绍一下这一次主办方。我们这一次的在线论坛是由跨国公司，名为蒙科的跨国公司和欧洲导师与教练协会共同举办的。欧洲导师与教练协会简称是 EMCC， 它是总部设在比利时布鲁塞尔，专门为导师、教练和督导提供国际资格认证的非营利组织。蒙科 Mentoring Co 它历史悠久，源于欧洲，是企业导师技术和组织隐形知识管理领域的全球知名教育咨询品牌。那 Mentoring Co 蒙科在中国的团队呢，我们会在本土市场上专注于开展企业导师制以及组织隐形知识管理的培训和咨询。同时我们提供 EMCC 认证的导师课程，8月份即将开课，是目前 EMCC 受证的中国唯一导师服务机构，也是国际职业导师协会 IPMA 的在中国的独家授权合作伙伴，组织隐形知识管理全球智库及简称为 GO-TKM 的理事单位。好，接下来让我们把话筒交给我们今天的主讲嘉宾。Now let's warmly welcome Anna Wright.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. So I'm going to be talking about transformative coaching, particularly unlocking the secret to transformative coaching. And in doing so, I'm hoping to model some of the coaching behaviours that we will need to do as coaches in order to achieve this. So let's start off by asking a question. Have you ever had a client that comes back between sessions and nothing's changed? They agree to take on a lot of actions. They seem highly energized, and yet they don't move forward. Just think about your answer for a moment, and we will discuss later. So today, this is our agenda. I'm going to be talking about what I mean by transformative coaching. Then I'm going to touch on the agreements around that, or contracting, depending on how you are trained, what you understand by that. Then the secret. I'm going to model some coaching behaviours by thinking about what do we need to address as coaches to achieve that. And then we'll wrap things up by talking about coaching presence. And there'll be plenty of time for questions, and I'll be joining you live for the questions element. So let's start off by thinking about what do I mean by transformative coaching. Now, as you can probably hear, I'm English and I'm a native English speaker. I was born and brought up in England. And yet it's quite confusing when you look at the definition of transformative versus transformational. And so let me tell you what I mean by transformative. I mean coaching that can prompt change, coaching that in itself creates a change through its impact. And when I'm talking about change, I mean changes in our client. I've given an illustration here. I found it easier than trying to create some diagram on PowerPoint just to draw it out. So this illustration is a typical coaching session. You can see the client is coming to the coach is asking what the client wants to think about. The client says this. This is what I want to get out of the coaching today. And so off we go. Okay, says the coach, I'm going to ask questions, we're going to track our progress, and we will get to this point. That's the destination. Our client sets a goal. We think about next steps with them, and sometimes nothing changes. Our clients not moving forward can be a sign that we're working at a transactional level rather than transformational. So what do I mean by that? I mean, it's action-based. We can have the good client telling us what we want to hear. The client can sort of agree to actions and say, oh, yes, that's just what I'm thinking. And I will kind of behave as if I'm trying to please you rather than actually questioning or asking for what they need in the process. If we look at neuroscience, there are some really great clues here about what transformational or transformative coaching actually is. You will have heard of neuroplasticity. This is the idea that our brains aren't set in stone. Our brains can change and evolve. We can rewire our thinking. We can go over old patterns and change behaviours. But in order to do that, we need to actually start doing the new behaviours. So we need to notice the patterns that we're stuck in. We need to adopt new patterns and start doing them. I could give an example of perhaps creating a pathway through some scrubby grassland or something. You start off walking the same route and eventually you form a path. If you choose to drive a car down it, the car with wider wheels than 2 human feet will create a laneway. If we put tarmac on it, we will create a road. And eventually, if we added more cars, we might choose to build a superhighway. And our brains are a little bit like that. So our neurons transmit information. With use, that becomes the default option. So if we start thinking in terms of what we want to do rather than what we've always done, we can start to get our brains used to working in a new way. For example, instead of thinking, oh no, I better not speak out in my meeting, people might think I'm stupid, and going down this default brain pathway of I might make a mistake, people might judge me, we can start to adopt new ways of thinking, which is my voice is valid, I'm at the table for a reason, I have something useful to say. And we need to go beyond just thinking that to actually speaking in the meetings and starting to rewire our brains. This is about integration. It's about putting theory into practice. It's about not just thinking about the idea of something, but actually doing it. And that's how change happens. So on my slide, I'm saying that this transformative coaching occurs at a deep level. This involves us as coaches really listening actively. We are going beyond the words our client says to the things they don't say, the things unsaid. We are looking at their body language. We are working on a cumulative understanding of our clients from session to session to session. We know what we know of them and we bring that to our listening as well. So this is a full body listening. We're using all of our senses here. And many of us will have experienced this in the pandemic, where instead of being live face-to-face with our clients, many of us were working online, and suddenly all of that sensory understanding was evolved into this much space, and it was exhausting for many of us to take on that level in work in new ways. So transformative coaching taps into our emotion. It taps into our motivation for change as well. And this is about action, not just planning for action. As a student, I used to spend hours and hours and hours coming up with revision timetables for exams and not actually revising for the exams. And I thought I'd done loads of work, but actually I just spent hours and hours and hours creating neat tables in different coloured pens and not actually learning anything. So this is the difference. This is action. We're not planning, we're doing it. So anything we can do to get our clients moving in the session itself is always useful here. And we are talking about identity rather than behaviours. So in other words, this is about, instead of going, what does this person need to do to get their goal? This is really about, who does this person need to become? And for those of you who are ICF coaches here, you will know that the ICF has reshaped their competencies in recent years. And there's a subtle shift from goals to growth. Our focus is on helping our clients grow. So really understanding who they are, what their motivations are, what their learning is, how they reflect on growth, how they reflect on experience, and how they then integrate that. That's where our focus is now. We become by doing. So I'm going to ask another question. Whose responsibility is the outcome of our coaching sessions? So whose responsibility is it? Because I know many coaches can feel really deflated when they notice this pattern of a client coming back and they've not achieved what they set out to. And my inkling, my feeling is that that's because we are taking on responsibility for those outcomes and not for the coaching process itself. So I'm asking that question to you just to think about. Whose responsibility is the outcome? So I want to talk a bit about agreements now. And when I say agreements, you may understand what I'm talking about as contracts or contracting. So that's how I was trained. Contracting, not just the written legal format that we do with our clients before we start work, talking about where's and when's of our meeting sessions, how we're going to be paid, what coaching is and isn't, but also the sort of psychological contracting for the work. So when I talk about that, I mean creating a safe space. What's going to work for you? What's going to get in your way as a client? And then within our coaching sessions themselves, we have a set of agreements that we talk about with our clients. So I'm probably best off demonstrating this, and I will do in a moment. But listen out for questions like, what's our purpose of the session? What do you want to get out of it? What's your measures of success? Those kind of things. That's our agreement. And we come back to it through our coaching session. So we might be checking in, at the beginning we talked about this. Are we on track to getting what you want? What else do we need to think about? That's our way of recontracting. Really, this is about creating a safe space for transformation. And I think that's our job as coaches. That safe space. So I'm going to give a demonstration now of contracting. I was going to invite somebody to play the role of client for this, but then it felt it was going to be too scripted, and they would be kind of role playing, but I wasn't quite comfortable with asking somebody to do that. So what I'm going to do is kind of amalgamate hundreds of coaching sessions that I've been in and hundreds of coaching sessions that I've listened to as a mentor, and just give a kind of typical coaching conversation for you to highlight this point. So this is the coach. This is the client. I'm delighted to see you here today. I'm really keen to hear what you want to get out of our coaching time. We've got half an hour. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm really struggling with life-work balance at the moment. I just feel like I'm failing at everything. I get home from work, the kids are in bed. I've still got work to do. I have to work, early in the morning or late at night. My house is a mess. I'm not eating properly. I'm really tired. Sounds like a lot going on. So you said you wanted to think about work-life balance. What do you want to get out of our time together? What do you want to leave with? So I need a plan. I need a plan to just to change things, because it can't go on. It's unsustainable. Okay, so this plan, what does it look like? Probably based on boundaries. You know, I need to get out of the office. It doesn't have to be bang on 5 o'clock, but 6 o'clock. I don't mind working late 1 or 2 nights, but not every night. So it's a kind of a framework. Ooh, a framework for work-life balance. Yeah. And why is that important to you right now? I'm not seeing my kids grow up. I feel ill. I'm always getting colds. I'm not looking after myself. It's having an impact. So yeah, it's important to me. Great. Okay, so I hear it's important. So today we're going to think about a framework. Let's get going. Purposes of illustration. A simplified conversation. But you know what I would say? It's highly likely that client will come back having agreed to leave work or whatever. That was just the beginning chunk of a conversation. And the same thing will happen. And you will have these clients that have these major issues and they come back week in, week out, nothing's changed. And yes, you are fulfilling a purpose of allowing a safe space for them to talk about things, but there is a transaction. It's a transactional element there. There is no depth. They haven't changed. So I asked a question about responsibility earlier, and I think really when we are understanding our answers to that is one of the ways that we unlock this secret to transformative coaching. We understand what our role is and isn't as a coach, and really where we bring value as coaches. So if we go back to that picture that I drew, here we go. This picture, we've got the coach and the client. In this one and in the demonstration I gave, the coach was quite quick to pick up on the suitcase, on the this. I want this. I want a framework for work-life balance. Okay, great, let's go. There is more to pretty much every coaching conversation than that initial, I want this. The suitcase. It's a suitcase, and I've used a suitcase deliberately because it's a metaphor. It's a container for a whole load of other things of value. We're not discounting what our clients first say, but we are unpacking it and going beyond it and finding real value there in depth. So I'm going to demonstrate again, just to hopefully kind of show how you might choose to go beyond the suitcase and unpack it. Okay, so let's skip a bit. So yeah, let me talk about, I really want a framework for life-work balance. Okay, so if we were to get a framework for life-work balance for you, what else would we need to think about? That's a good question. I think I need to think about how I work with my team, because they are young kids, they are young kids, they're very overworked, they're busy, and so I struggle to give them work to do because I don't know that they're going to do it the right quality. If I'm hearing you right, this is about delegating. Yeah, sure, it's about delegating. I'm sort of not wanting to dump more work on them, so I'm probably taking on a bit too much. It sounds almost like you are taking a lot of responsibility for them and making perhaps some assumptions there about what they can and can't do. Yeah, I guess you're right. So there's something about your relationship to the team, about delegating, perhaps even about rescuing them and your role in that. Yeah, I think rescuing is probably the right word here. And what else do you think we need to think about if we're going to get you a framework for work-life balance? Well, going back to the team, we're really under-resourced. I keep telling my manager about it. He's just not listening. We've got all this work. I'm just taking on extra to get it all done. And I'm kind of creating an expectation that we can get it done. But the reality is he doesn't listen. We are under-resourced. Okay, so is that about influence or Is it about, yeah, it's influence. Okay, so we've got the influence thing and something about delegating. And what else? What else would help you get work-life balance, a framework for that? I'm in meetings all the time. I've got no time to think. I get called into meetings and, I'm kind of have to be there to show my face and blah, blah, blah. Is this about saying no? Yeah, it's more than saying no. It's about just having a system-wide no. It's about perhaps just thinking, why do we have to have all these meetings? It's a real big question to ask across the organisation. Also some big questions to ask here. Sounds like meetings needs to go on our list for things to address. And what else is getting in your way of achieving work-life balance? Well, I guess I don't really feel very supported at home. Yeah, the kids are in bed, so that's happening, but nothing else is really happening. And at the moment, for various different reasons, I've got the big job that's earning a lot of money and involves the long hours, so I could do with some more support. Okay, so some home life, and within the home life conversations, what else do we need to be thinking about? Probably the way I look after myself. I'm not sleeping, which doesn't help me focus. So self-care, yeah, self-care. And what else do we need to address for you to start thinking of a framework for work-life balance? I think it's something about my relationship. It's something about my relationship at home and at work, really. I need to influence with my manager. I need to talk to my team and realise that I'm managing them and not parenting them. There's other, it feels quite upsetting to even think about it. There's a lot going on. I hear there's a lot going on for you, and I can see the emotion. What would you say is underneath all of that? What's really going on here? What should our focus be? I need to be a leader. I need to take control of this situation. Okay, we're getting to heavy territory now. So that was a demonstration just to show one way of unlocking transformative coaching, and that is to go from the suitcase to what's within the suitcase. So on the surface, that coaching demonstration was about work-life balance. And yes, it was about work-life balance, but when we started to unpack it and open things up, there was an awful lot more going on there as well. There was home life, influence, delegating, rescuing. And actually, when we got through all of that, our clients realised this is about their identity as a leader and what they're taking responsibility for. So another drawing, we've got this suitcase, and when you're traveling a lot, you might choose to lock your suitcase. So I've used this metaphor of a combination. The combination lock we have, if we zoom in here, we've got our initial goal for the session. This is the suitcase, but we can open it up and there is an awful lot there within that, an awful lot more to discover. The combination to unlocking the secret of transformative coaching is to use our competency, use our skill set as coaches and how we turn up, our coaching presence. And also we need to take into consideration mindset, our client's mindset. Where are they at right now? What are their values? I'm going to take these one by one and start to think through them a little bit more deeply with you. But in this diagram, you'll see, our client in the first demonstration says they want this, the suitcase. But if we unpack it, there is far more choice, many more options there, and they may well choose that as their destination. So trained coaches, particularly International Coaching Federation, ICF coaches, will be familiar with these competencies. They're the skills that we show as coaches. Very quick talk through. So ethical practice goes without saying. We embody a coaching mindset. Remember, this is our value as coaches. We aren't consultants. We don't know the best answer for our clients. We are helping them think things through for themselves. That's our job. We talk about agreements. We establish these agreements and maintain them and refer back to them. Really key here is establishing trust and safety with our clients, maintaining our presence throughout, listening and listening beyond the words our client says, to think of cumulative listening, listening to body language, listening to what is unsaid, and evoking awareness through asking questions, observation and feedback, reflecting what's going on for us, our intuitions, and in that way we facilitate our client growth. So we have these skills, and the ICF, and they have a set of markers or behaviours to make it easier to examine coaching sessions. So these markers will show you are able to do these different things. So there is one marker that I was going to base this whole talk on, and then I realized that because this is an EMCC project, it may not mean as much, but I think it's useful here. And this marker is one of the ways that we contract. So it's marker 3.4 for all of you nerds like me that like to dwell on these things. The coach partners with the client to define what the client believes they need to address to achieve what they want to accomplish in the session. In other words, we help our client unpack the suitcase. They say they want the suitcase. Our job as a coach is to explore what's in it and check in with them what they really want then. One of the other combinations on the lock was one of the other little bits of the padlock. The key to unlocking the secret is mindset. Our mindset, we're adopting a coaching mindset. If we look at this illustration of an iceberg, it's a useful metaphor for mindset, because we have the superficial, the bit above the seawater, which is the outcomes or the behaviors that we see below that. These behaviors are based on our mindset. So mindset, you will have heard of growth mindset. So if you are very high on growth mindset, if something goes wrong, you will look for the learning opportunity within that. Your mindset is based on your family upbringing, the culture within which you're brought up, your ethnicity, probably your gender, life experience, family, all of those things. You may not even be familiar with what's going on there, but it has an impact on your behavior. If I can just use a personal comment, so I'm quite growth mindset. I'm a nerd for learning. I love unpicking things and reflecting on them and thinking how I can do better. And if things go wrong, I tend to bring a growth mindset. So I look on it and look on how I can make sure it doesn't go wrong again. Whereas my brother would look at something and think, oh, that's just my luck. That's my lot in life. So he's got a different approach. And understanding by questioning and raising awareness about what's going on under the sea, is important for our clients' growth. It will have an impact. So my brother's approach to learning is so different from mine, but a coach would need to point that out and help them understand that and the impact on their experiences at work. Okay. So it's important to understand mindset. It's also important to understand our motivations to change. So what do we need to address? That marker 3.4. When we're in our coaching sessions, what do we need to address with our clients? Here today, a group of fellow coaches from around the world, what do we need to address to be able to unlock the secret to transformative coaching? I think this is a really useful question for us because I notice this a lot. So I work with a lot of coaches and I can almost see the panic when I start to explore this topic with them. I've put some pictures down just to prompt my thinking. And there's a picture here with a big L on it. This L is a learner. sign. In England, I grew up in England. If you're learning to drive, you have a big L on your car. It's for learner. And in the illustrations of the coaching sessions, the coach had an L on, because I think this is very typical of a inexperienced coach. And I think we get over this with a bit of practice with other coaches in a safe space where you just focus on unpacking the suitcase. Don't worry about the goal. Just unpack, and the client finds their way. So the first illustration is a warning sign. So I see this. Coaches panic. They think it's getting more complex. We've only got half an hour. That's why I've put the clock on. People panic around time, but we've only got half an hour and it's getting more and more complex. So I'm going to pick an outcome for my client and we're going to just shoo on down there. This is what we need to address. We need to trust the process, and we need to remember the value we bring as coaches here. Our job is to explore with our clients. Focus is growth. We ask our clients where they want to go. We don't go, we've only got 5 minutes, so we're going to go here. I notice there's more here than we initially talked about. Where would you like to spend our time today? We've got half an hour. That's their job. Just to create the safe space for their thinking. I've put a light bulb on because I think there's a lot of useful metaphors to remember here about inspiration. The language for inspiration is helpful. We talk about a light bulb moment. We talk about a flash of inspiration, an aha moment. We don't say an aha week, a light bulb month, a slow wave of inspiration. It's flash, it's quick. We get these insights in a moment. We don't need hours and hours and hours. The hours and hours and hours and hours, and it might be over several coaching sessions, is the unpacking. But we're not taking responsibility for choosing the direction we're going in. That's up to our clients. We are noticing and partnering. Rabbit holes, another metaphor. I think this metaphor comes from Lewis Carroll's book, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, where Alice dives down a rabbit hole and ends up in a magical land of wonder and adventure. And yet, if we look at the dictionary, the definition of this is that it's a sort of scary, surreal space. And I hear coaches talk about it. My client went down a rabbit hole. They lost track. They went down a rabbit hole. As if your job as a coach is to steer your clients along a path that's predetermined. It isn't. Remember, rabbit holes are ways to explore. If you don't go down rabbit holes, you won't know about the community within it. If we go down rabbit holes, we can explore, we can understand relationship, we can understand our own impact, we can understand the broader system. It's important stuff. And one of our jobs as coaches is to help our clients map that territory. We notice and reflect it back. We started off thinking about this and now it feels this is important. Where do you want to go next? We give the choice to our clients. It's their job to decide. We partner with them. The learning is in the adventure. Let's talk about coaching presence. It's key to all of this. It's part of that padlock that I created. It's part of the combination that helps unlock the secret to transformative coaching. And yet it's quite ephemeral. It's hard to define. What is it? It is the rabbit hole. It is our job, our role, what we do. We help map. We notice. We are part of the adventure. A woman called Tunde Erdos did some research on coaching presence where she put sensors on coaches and their clients and realised it's a very interactive process. It's two-way. We are responsive, not reactive to our clients. We hold that space with them in partnership and shape it based on their needs. I think to do this effectively, we really need to move beyond our own egos. We can get hung up on solving things on righting wrongs, on coming up with solutions. And our job is the exploration. It's about growth. All the ICF new framework changes their language from goal to growth. That's where the value is. There is a clue in that marker that I shared with you. The old version of the marker is here as well. So the marker now says coach partners with the client. The old version said coach helps the client. Our job isn't to help in that way. We don't rescue. We partner with them. We notice, we reflect, we observe, we give feedback. We partner. We create thinking space. We help them map the rabbit holes. We encourage our clients' reflections, their learning and their growth. That's what it's all about. So if we think about coaching presence, it's about partnering. It's an equal relationship. We're not there as the superhero going to solve things. We're noticing. We are sensing rather than knowing. We are responsive rather than reactive. And if you remember one thing from today, please let it be what I talk to all the coaches that I mentor about, which is do less, be more. Be a coach. Adopt that coaching mindset. Turn up the volume on your coaching presence. Slow time down. Be a coach in the presence of your clients. Stop offering coaching interventions. Be a coach. This is transformative in itself. A little bit like that demonstration where the person was talking about all the solutions to work-life balance, and actually if they just were a leader, had those difficult conversations, they were a leader, they would solve things. They would take responsibility for that. So I would love to continue the conversation with you, and I will put up some options for doing that in a moment. But meanwhile, if anyone has any questions, I will be joining you live in a moment, and we can do that. Thank you so much for today. Hello there.
Hi, thanks for sharing. So there's a question from an audience. So Dr. Wright, what does it mean by do less? Because you just mentioned we cannot only make plans, we need to do actions for that plan. So what do you mean by do less?
Thank you. So I mean, as a coach, all of the actions are our client's responsibility. And Min, I realise you are going to translate this, so I'm going to probably pause at the end of every sentence. So do less as a coach, allow the actions to be what our clients are responsible for.
Okay. So 刚刚有一位观众提了一个问题他想问莱特博士他在讲座中提到的 do less 少做是什么意思？因为他在之前的演讲中提到了我们不仅仅是做计划，而是要出于这个计划要去具体的行动，所以说他问了这个问题。那刚刚莱特博士他的回答是我们 do less 是coach 他要保持一个理念，那就是我们要保持以客户为中心，让他自己去为自己负责，那就是说要强调要客户自己要有主人翁的意识。
Oh, can I just add one more sentence to that? So
yeah,
often
sure.
Often I see coaches offer tools or lots of questions, or they try to add value by stepping in and coming up with suggestions or solutions. Our value is in just reflecting back and being responsive and partnering. We don't need to add tips and tricks and tools. We just offer coaching presence.
刚刚莱特博士是说往往呢我们可能出于一种工具的效果，我们可能是想要会给客户去提供各种各样的建议，或者是想要通过提建议来增加一些价值，或者是提供自己的见解。但是呢往往本身教练的场域提供给他的场域创造的 让客户自己思考的自由的空间、安全的空间，往往已经是一种很成功的教练工具了。
Thank you.
Thank you. So anyone present has any questions? Please put your questions in the chat box.
Meanwhile, I've got even more to add on the do less, if that's useful. Even in the way we frame questions, I think we can minimize it. So simple questions like, why is that important? What does that emotion tell you? Are useful. I quite often hear coaches offering very complicated questions and then explaining why they asked the complicated question and then refining the question out loud with another question. And actually, if we are just present and simplify things, it allows our client space to think rather than dominating everything by doing too much. We do less.
OK，刚刚莱特博士讲到的是，刚刚也是对前面一个问题的补充他想说的是，对于客户的提问，我们教练的这个责任和角色，往往是需要简化他们复杂的问题，不断的简化，然后透过现象看到本质。比如说我们会问，什么是最重要的？什么对你是最重要的？有什么样的这个事件对你触发了什么样的感情，触发了什么样的情绪不断的把问题从复杂化到简单化创造一个自由的教练场域，往往已经就是一场很成功的教练辅导了。所以说我们强调的 do less做更少，意思就是说简化简单让客户去做这个主人，让客户为自己负责，让客户主动去思考，让客户主动的为自己提出的问题想到就是最适合自己的解决方法。
And remember, when we do less, we need to be more, and that's about our presence and our sensory perception and all of that.
Yeah, 所以说我们做的少，然后 be more 它是强调一种 be more coach. Yeah, the mindset 你的心态，你的就是你的心态要你的意识要把自己武装成一个教练的头脑然后所以要 do less, be more. So there's a resistance of change. There's another question: how to deal with resistance of change? 这个
How to deal with resistance of change.
Yeah, the resistance of change.
Okay. And I think that links to do less, be more. And I think our job there, sometimes when we have the big L plate, we are the learner coach, we worry. And so we try to do lots of different things. We come up with tips and tricks and we try and do things in a different way. And I would say if we notice a resistance to change, our job is to reflect that back and ask, I notice there's something going on here. For example, what's going on? It feels like you are excited by change and yet there is a resistance there as well. And that's the basis of we ask it, we notice it. Some people are resistant. Most of us are wired to be resistant to change, but actually understanding that is growth in itself. So there's the value, understanding that resistance. I'll let you translate that bit, Min. I've got a tiny bit to add.
那刚刚那个莱特博士他提出的是给我们提过什么是resistance of change， 对就是改变的抵触。那人人对于未知都是很害怕的。教练他对于教练辅导工作，他认为是像一架飞机一样 airplane， 就是非常的重大，他会经常担心自己做不好，会很多 do more 去做很多的我们所谓的添油加醋的工作，但其实不必要的。比如说我们可能会做更多的建议或者是提供更多的诀窍往往是自认为对客户有用，但其实你只需要提供一个场域就好了，自由安全的场域。
I think I had a conversation. I met an old friend who's a coach at the airport a couple of days ago, and we had this conversation that why as coaches we sometimes can't change ourselves unless there's a life emergency or something drastic that intervenes. And I think that uncovers some of the biggest questions in life. Why are we resistant? And that's where the interest is. That's where the understanding is. It's one of the big questions.
OK，刚刚莱特博士有提到了他有一次在飞机上遇到了他一个老朋友，也是做教练工作的，为什么往往我们教练自己本身其实也会对于改变有抵触呢？说很难改变呢？有时候我们遇到了很多重大的事件，或者是很多预料之外的事情，我们也没有办法去立即的做出改变，这是为什么呢？所以这其实是普遍人世间的问题，而不是一个人的疑惑。Okay, next.
Hello, Mary. Slide.
Hello.
I want to put a question for you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, please.
In the slide, there is a word motivation.
Motivation, yeah.
Yeah, motivation. There is opinion said it's weird to guess other guys' motivation because a mankind's heart is as deep as the sea, and it seems it's kind of conflict with belief the coaches the coaches competence or as a being mood. So I was wondering in the slide why we talk about the motivation, and this part puzzles me. So would you mind to talk more about the understanding or the motivations of others? Yes, please.
Is the slide your...
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, I'll let you translate that.
Let's clarify the Slick's question. So Slick. Hi.
Yes.
Yeah. So 你的问题是在说，你是想说动机这个主题，对吧？海，人心深如海。那教练，你是想说 motivation 跟情绪化联系在一起，还是什么意思？说 mood，
对，就是
coach's mood。
他的 PPT 中就讲到了我的理解哈，他要讲我们要理解客户或者是教练对象的那个动机，但是我觉得他这个好像由于我们教练状态中提到就是相信客户的就是临在感嘛，相信客户是那种全能的状态，而不去猜测他的背后的动机是不是有点矛盾，或者说我理解偏了这种。所以我对他在 PPT 中强调那个动机，客户的动机，我感觉有点困惑。对，我不知道刚才我的英文是不是也表达了同样的意思。是人心深如海，所以不要去有一种说法是不要去谈论别人的动机，或者去猜测别人的动机，因为每个人的遭遇不一样，他可能这个动机猜测也不一定是 accurate 是正确的。我大概想表达这意思，所以我想他关于动机这块能不能再多讨论一些，再分享一些。
Okay, Dr. Wright. Yeah, Dr. Wright. Hi, please talk more about the motivation. Yeah.
I think Slek is talking about, I talked about motivation briefly on the mindset slide.
Yes.
And I think motivation is interesting. As coaches, when we offer an agreement around our coaching, we tend to ask, why is this important to you? And that's about understanding our client's motivation. I just mentioned that I met another coach at the airport through coincidence a few days ago, and we had a conversation about this. So the conversation was me saying, I've put on weight, I'm eating too much, and I can't get into exercise at the moment. What's going on for me? I know I should be doing this. And it was interesting because I'm worrying that I have no motivation. And through questioning with her, I realized actually I've had a lot of upset at my home, within my family recently, and my friends, some very difficult situations. I realized through a kind of impromptu coaching session at the airport with a friend that my motivation at the moment is comfort. And I need that comfort much more than I need to address my fitness. And so the next stage in that conversation is to realize, well, how can I get comfort through fitness? That would be probably the next stage of the conversation. So motivation is key to this. But what are we motivated for? If we go on the suitcase element of coaching, if I'd said I need a plan for fitness, we would have just gone for that. But by unpacking the suitcase, we realized that actually, because I've had some difficulties in my personal life, my number one motivation at the moment is to rest and get comfort. So how can I combine those would be the next question. So it's an understanding of motivation is really important.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wright. Okay, Flick， 我认为他的解答是，我觉得莱特博士他是把动机这个问题更倾向于是优先权的意思。就比如说，他刚刚是提到动机是在 mindset 那一章节，心态那一章节。当教练与客户之间签订协议，那么不仅是法律上的，也是心理的契约。那么就是教练会询问客户什么是最重要的，什么对你是最重要的，他需要首先去理解客户的动机。那他也提到了，就是刚才那个事件，就是在飞机上遇到了一个旧友，一个老友嘛，谈论了就是一些两个人聊聊，互相聊聊，对面那位教练就会说我最近就是可能又增重了呀，就变胖了呀，因为女孩子可能会爱美嘛。那也会抱怨一下说最近会议怎么那么多我感觉自己无法抽身等等那些问题。那我呢会通过一些询问法，就是不断的通过询问，然后去慢慢的知道，然后也知道自己可能其实也有一些问题，在家庭方面也有一些小问题啊等等。那当时两个人聊着聊着呢，就进入了一个正式的教练辅导空间。那他们就是后来慢慢的就是聊出来，其实当时他抱怨了，当时他提出了对老友倾诉了3到4个自己的困惑，但是呢发现慢慢的能够拎出来，其实最重要的一点是什么呢？他其实他的老朋友最在意的其实是 fitness， 那就是他的体型问题，那健康问题也就是衍生为健康问题了，就健康跟体型嘛。所以说其实关于这个 motivation 他想说的事情就是相当于你面对客户的一个大箱子，那从箱子里面他有很多很多的困惑，很多很多问题需要解决，那你打开，那有很多的摊在你面前，你首先要决定哪一个 number one 需要解决的问题， number two 需要解决的number three 就是重要的，是要根据这些问题去排序。那么首先要解决的问题，那么就是你的动机1、动机2、动机3。所以说我想这就是教练辅导的一个关键的元素，就是动机。对，你可以理解为一种对于解决问题的一种优先的考量。对，就是我不知道 Slick 您有听懂吗？对，您有理解到吗？
Thank you for your reply. At this moment, another word jumped into my head. Maybe intention.
Yes.
I think
I didn't hear the word.
Attention. Attention.
Yeah, intention.
Intention. Okay.
Intention.
Yeah, yes, intention. The difference between intention and motivation.
Okay.
So 我想说 OK， so 刚刚就是 Slick 先生他提出的问题应该是他想要了解 intention 目的、意图和 motivation 一个人动机之间的区别，对吗？
I think that's a useful distinction. And within motivation, we realize that from memory, Gretchen somebody has written a book about the 4 tendencies, about motivation. Anyway, I can't remember from the top of my head. But she describes that some of us are motivated internally, probably because what we want to do aligns with our values and our mindset. Other people are motivated by others' expectations. Some people are motivated by obligation. I have to do this because I should. Some people because they want to fit in with everybody else. If all of my friends were going to the gym, I might want to go to the gym. But unpacking my internal motivation at the moment is just rest and comfort. But then when we look at intention, that's a useful other question because, I've almost been doing this myself, Slack, with this conversation I'm having with myself about my own fitness. My intent is long-term to feel more comfortable because moving would be easier if I was fitter. So it's a useful additional question to think about what is your intent with doing this? Because sometimes we are, sitting on a sofa watching television because we want to feel comfortable. And the intent is to feel comfortable. But when we unpack that, we realize that long term, if my intent is to be more comfortable moving, my intent is to be more healthy, then I have to rethink my short term approach and look long term. So intent allows us to nuance our thinking about motivation. So that's a useful additional question.
OK， 首先他讲的是刚刚提的问题是 intention and motivation 之间的区别一个人的目的意图，就是我们的目标导向所谓的和就是动机之间的区别。刚刚莱特博士说，其实他们之间有非常明显的区别。首先呢，motivation 它应该是内化的，是从自身出发的，内在的，自己想要干什么，自身的，那是自身的一种心态。往往你自身想要做什么，它其实是属于很舒适的，相当于舒适圈。那 intention 它呢有一种附加的东西在，比如说别人的期待你要履行的责任，你要履行的义务等等。就好比说，就有一个例子当你看到你朋友去 gym 去健身房去锻炼身体对，去练自己的肌肉muscle 之类的东西，那你就会想要去融入他们，你也觉得我也是应该也要去进健身房了，但是你自身可能不会这么想，你自身可能会觉得我就觉得看电视或者是就做一个sofa potato在沙发上吃薯片或者是看电视就很舒适。但是从长期的角度来讲一个人的要有一种意识，他意识到呢健康才是永恒的，健康才是对自身有益的，那么他就会去不断的去反思自己之前的行为，反思自己之前的那些动机，他就会去改变。对
I've just put the name of that author that I mentioned into the chat。So
刚刚就是在那个聊天框里面，是刚刚因为 Slick 先生提问之后，那个 Wright 博士他想到了一本书，他阅读过的，但是没有立即想起来，所以说他现在把就是这本书的名字叫做 The Four Tendencies or Better Than Before 这本书的名字就是打给大家。对，是谈论关于 motivation 的 ，yeah， 关于动机的 ，yeah。So that's all today. Thank you very much for Dr. Wright.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. So I'll send you an email later.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for listening, audience. 小 B 刚刚听到了沟通大师非常优秀的导师给我们做的讲座分享。那想必大家对学习导师应该有感兴趣的8月25即将开课，那先到先得，请锁定您的席位。好，接下来还有一个消息告诉大家我们 GO-TKM 及那个组织隐形知识管理全球智库独家开放了，就是我们之后会在瑞士达沃斯10月份将举办这个论坛，这个论坛呢，我们独家开放了线上的通道，是想为全球人民互相分享智慧提供一个非常优秀良好的平台。但在这次论坛之中呢，你们会学到来自各行各业的专家，来自全球500强的领袖，他们自身独有的隐形知识和经验价值。所以呢，各位听众，趁现在我们有早鸟票，那低至3折的早鸟票，那赶紧扫码报名，锁定您的席位。好。接下来另外如果您所在的组织或者是您觉得对绿色学习有帮助的，请报名参加此次的全球绿色学习大奖。那我们希望在瑞士的颁奖台上能够一起见证您的荣耀。好，今天我们的讲座基本上快告尾声了。如果您对今天的讲座有什么样的建议或者是反馈，请扫码填上您的建议，留下您宝贵的意见。那关于下一期的预告，那下一期是来自英国的 Claire Norman 女士给我们做一个关于开启和结束高效辅导艺术的讲座。她是埃森哲前全球领导力体验架构师，也是变革型教练的作者，她更是 ICF 大师级教练，也是认证导师、教练督导。那就是我们下周周二希望见到大家。好，谢谢今天大家的聆听。
Thank you. Bye bye.
Wonderful.
With
Thank
love
you.
from Ireland.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.